Eat less, exercise more. That's the standard advice for fat loss. But you know there's something deeper going on, and you might even suspect it's hormonal. So, how do you actually lose body fat when your biology is stuck? Keep watching, because in this video, I'm going to show you how cortisol is sabotaging your weight loss and give you 3 root cause strategies to fix it starting today. Most conventional weight loss advice follows the outdated, oversimplified calorie in, calorie out model. The problem is, when you do all the right things, the diets, the extra cardio, the calorie counting, and the scale still doesn't budge, it's easy to feel like you've run out of options and that nothing's going to work. You start to think your metabolism is just broken. But what if I told you that your body isn't broken? It's actually doing exactly what it's programmed to do to survive. That's right. When cortisol is chronically elevated because of mental, emotional, or physical stressors, it can signal for your body to store fuel as fat and create a downward spiral of inflammation and weight loss resistance that's ridiculously difficult to escape. So how do you actually lose body fat when your own biology is stuck in survival mode? Today, I'm going to show you exactly how stress hormones like cortisol are sabotaging your weight loss efforts. We're going to look at the stress belly mechanism, why your standard blood tests might be lying to you, and the 3 specific root cause strategies that I use with my clients to lower high cortisol and finally drop stubborn body fat. In the 15 years that I've been practicing functional medicine, I've worked with hundreds of people who feel like they're fighting a losing battle against their own bodies. They're exhausted, frustrated, and quite frankly, tired of being told to decrease their stress. Interestingly, many of them have already tried to lower their cortisol directly. They're taking ashwagandha, they're going to yoga class, they're working with a therapist. And while those things are helpful, they often aren't enough. Why? Well, first you have to understand what cortisol is, what is actually triggering your body to make it, and how it drives fat gain, especially in your midsection. Once you understand the why, you can treat it at the root cause. So let's dive into the science of how your body's death grip on excess fat actually happens. Cortisol is a hormone from the glucocorticoid family made by your adrenal glands. Now, it's important to remember that cortisol isn't the bad guy. When it's balanced, it supports your immune system, helps you wake up in the morning, and manages inflammation. But when it's dysregulated, it becomes a major obstacle to fat loss. There are 3 main ways this happens. Mechanism number 1, leptin resistance. Think of leptin as your put down your fork hormone. It's produced by your fat cells to tell your brain, hey, we have enough energy stored, you can stop eating now. But when cortisol is chronically high, your brain becomes desensitized to that leptin signal. It's like a broken thermostat. Even if the room is boiling, the furnace keeps kicking out heat. This is leptin resistance. Your brain thinks you're starving, so it triggers intense cravings for sugar and carbs, and it slows down your metabolism to save energy. High cortisol literally forces you into a famine mindset, even if you've just eaten a full meal. Mechanism number 2, gluconeogenesis, or as I like to think about it, the lion versus the desk problem. Cortisol's main job is to make sure you have enough fuel to survive a threat. It does this through gluconeogenesis, which literally means creating new glucose. When you're stressed, cortisol tells your liver to dump sugar into your bloodstream. This is a lifesaver if you're running from a lion, but if your threat is a toxic workplace, sitting in traffic, or chronic inflammation in your gut, you aren't running anywhere. You're just sitting there with high blood sugar. When that sugar isn't used for energy, your body has to store it. And where does it go? Primarily to the midsection as visceral fat. This is the fat that wraps around your internal organs, and here's the scary part. Visceral fat is metabolically active. It produces its own inflammatory chemicals called cytokines, which tell your brain to produce even more cortisol. It's a self-perpetuating cycle of fat gain. Mechanism number 3, the insulin sabotage. Finally, high cortisol counteracts insulin. Insulin's job is to unlock your cells so they can take in sugar for fuel. But high cortisol makes your cells deaf to insulin. This means even if you're eating a healthy low-carb diet, your blood sugar can stay high simply because your cortisol is elevated. This is one of the most demoralizing things that I see. People doing everything right with their diet, but cortisol is sabotaging them from the inside out. Before we get to the strategies, we have to talk about testing. When most people suspect that they're dealing with elevated cortisol, their first step is to go to a conventional doctor and ask for a cortisol test. If their doctor is willing, and that's a big if, they'll get a morning blood draw for cortisol. 99% of the time, the doctor says it's in the normal range and sends them home. The problem is that a single blood draw is just a snapshot. It doesn't tell us how much cortisol you're making throughout the day or how your body is breaking it down. And it doesn't show us how your cortisol may be spiking or crashing, disrupting your sleep, or driving blood sugar problems. That's why I recommend the Dutch adrenal test. Dutch stands for Dried Urine Test for Comprehensive Hormones. This at-home urine test allows us to see your daily cortisol curve as well as overall cortisol production. We can see if you're high in the morning, if you're spiking at night, which causes insomnia, and most importantly, we can see your metabolized cortisol. This tells us the total production over 24 hours. Without this data, you could easily miss a crucial root cause of your weight gain, or you're just throwing supplements at a problem you haven't fully identified. You can order this at-home comprehensive cortisol test through my website, and I'll even help you interpret the results and come up with a plan to treat your specific cortisol imbalance. Check out the video description to get started. All right, now that you know how high cortisol can make it difficult for you to lose weight, and you know how to test your levels accurately, let's dive into my top 3 functional strategies that you can use to lower your high cortisol and finally drop some fat. Strategy number 1 is balancing your blood sugar. This is my favorite strategy because it addresses high cortisol both directly and indirectly. Remember, every time your blood sugar crashes, your body sees that as a life-threatening emergency and pumps out cortisol to save you. To stop this, you have to stop eating naked carbs. A naked carb is a simple sugar or starch eaten without fiber, protein, or healthy fat. Think white rice, white bread, or fruit juice. These cause a massive spike, followed by a massive crash. Now, please hear me out on this. I did not say that you need to stop eating all carbs. They just need to be paired with other nutrients to prevent a rapid spike in blood sugar. The way you do this is by focusing on eating plenty of protein, healthy fats, and fiber at every meal. These nutrients slow down digestion and keep your blood sugar on a gentle wave instead of a roller coaster. Now, for those of you dealing with intense cravings, energy fluctuation, and excess visceral fat, I often recommend berberine. Berberine is a natural plant compound that is sometimes called nature's Ozempic for its ability to reduce insulin resistance, boost metabolism, and support healthy fat loss. A 2012 meta-analysis of 14 studies showed that berberine was as effective as metformin, a common diabetes medication, at controlling blood sugar, but with far fewer side effects. It boosts GLP-1 production, helps resensitize your brain to leptin, and helps your cells handle glucose more efficiently. I've included my favorite practitioner-exclusive berberine supplement in the free Functional Fat Loss Trio PDF. And if you order it through my Fullscript dispensary, you'll get a nice little bonus as well. You can grab that at the link in the video description. Strategy number 2 is improving the brain's ability to regulate the HPA axis. The HPA axis is the telephone line between your brain and your adrenals. If that line is noisy or broken, your adrenals will just keep pumping out cortisol, creating a vicious cycle of weight gain and physical stress. The volume knob for this system is the vagus nerve. It's known as cranial nerve 10, and it's the main highway for your rest and digest system, otherwise known as the parasympathetic nervous system. When the vagus nerve is toned or sensitized, it tells your brain that the threat is over. It also directly regulates your feeling of fullness and even influences GLP-1, the hormone that weight loss drugs like Ozempic mimic. How do you tone a nerve? Same way you tone a muscle. You use it. Here's a few strategies you can use to do just that. Gargling. Take a big sip of water and gargle vigorously for 60 seconds every night. It should be intense enough to make your eyes water slightly. Humming. Deep, low-frequency humming or chanting stimulates the nerve endings in the back of your throat, which stimulates the vagus. Belly breathing. 15 minutes a day of slow, diaphragmatic breathing is one of the best ways to tone the vagus and also regulate your HPA axis as a whole. To be clear, these aren't just relaxation tips. These are physiological hacks to force your nervous system back into balance. Another sneakier way to tone the vagus nerve is by boosting certain friendly bacteria in the microbiome. A very special bacteria named Akkermansia muciniphila has been well documented for supporting healthy weight loss and is directly related to the vagus nerve, since poor vagal tone can cause a deficiency in this keystone metabolism-regulating microbe. A recently published human trial found that supplementation with Akkermansia decreased body weight by an average of 5 pounds and decreased hip circumference by an average of 1 inch. And these folks were specifically asked not to change their diet or exercise during the 3 months of the study. I'll include my favorite Akkermansia product, the same one from this clinical trial, in the free Fat Loss Trio download. You'll find the link below. Strategy number 3 is resensitizing your insulin receptors. If the receptors in charge of binding to insulin and regulating glucose levels are deaf, your body will always be in an inflammatory fat-storing state. 1 in 3 Americans is currently insulin resistant, and high cortisol is often the driving force. Beyond just eating better, we need to give the receptors a reason to wake up. This is where movement is non-negotiable. But here's a warning. If your cortisol is already sky high, doing high-intensity interval training can actually make it worse by adding more stress. I recommend lower-impact strength training and daily walking. Remember, muscle is your metabolic sink. The more muscle you have, the more places you have to put glucose so it doesn't turn into fat. There are loads of foods, micronutrients, and nutraceuticals that can help improve insulin sensitivity. Berberine does, and so does EGCG from green tea, both of which you'll find in my favorite berberine product. I also love to use resveratrol. You've probably heard that this is found in red wine or grapes, but it's also in blueberries, blackberries, and peanuts. A meta-analysis of 11 studies found that resveratrol significantly reduced fasting glucose and improved insulin resistance markers like hemoglobin A1C. It's also incredibly anti-inflammatory, which lowers the background noise that keeps cortisol high. There are some great studies that show intermittent fasting to be a good strategy for increasing insulin sensitivity as well. But be careful with this one if you're experiencing big swings in energy or blood sugar. A longer fasting window isn't always your friend. I know we've covered a lot of in-depth science today, but I want you to hear this. Your body is not your enemy. It is a brilliant, self-regulating system that is currently trying to protect you from perceived threats. The weight gain, the cravings, the stress belly, these are just signals that your HPA axis needs help. When you address the root cause by balancing blood sugar, toning your nervous system, and resensitizing your cells, the fat loss becomes a natural side effect of getting healthy. If you're not sure where to start, getting more info about your cortisol levels is a good first step. You'll find a link to comprehensive at-home functional cortisol testing in the description. If you're ready to stop guessing and start testing, I'd love to help you. And don't forget to grab your copy of that free Functional Fat Loss Trio PDF with my suggested supports. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button. It helps me reach more people who are struggling with these same issues. And make sure to subscribe and click the bell so you never miss a single functional medicine strategy to reach your health and wellness goals. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.